China permeated with fear. Yang Tongyan, August 1st, 2008, on penamerica.org. According to a recent report by the Epoch Times, a tragic incident occurred on Tuesday, October 25th at a primary school in the Ganguan town, Tongjiang County, Xinjiang Province. The lights suddenly went off as students were leaving the classroom after a evening study period. The hallway, which turned pitch dark, which touched off panic among the students as they rushed down the stairs. Some students fell down, and a surge of others stumbled over them, unable to stop. As more students pushed from above, resulting in the tragedy, by 11:30 a.m., a stampede death toll had increased to 10. Those injured were still in serious condition. At the blaze in Kalamaya in 1996, the death of several hundred children was also sparked by panic. On the night of the blaze, some local officials were watching children's performance. As the fire took hold, the frightened public servants fled, and the crowd was pushed, squeezed, and crushed. Most of the children were trampled underfoot before being burned to death. If everyone had remained calm and made an orderly exit, tragedy could have been averted. During the New Year holiday season several years ago, tragic incidents happened at two train stations in Anhui and Zhengzhou. Passengers rushed to get on the trains and trampled over one another, and it resulted in several women being crushed to death at the scene. Fear flows everywhere in China. Farmers are in fear of losing their livelihoods because of land scarcity or possible forced land acquisitions. Jobless laborers are in fear of inadequate social welfare. Government officials are in fear of losing their power. Corrupt officials are in fear of conflict from fellow officials or disciplinary action from law enforcement agencies, and fear pervades the entire society. Hardly anyone is content with poverty or cares about principles, and they cannot calmly face the crisis. The result of all this fear is the degeneration of the situation in China. But the real cause of fear is actually brought about by Chinese culture. The primary Chinese culture is authoritarian, and it's degenerated to the worst kind, the party culture. The kind of culture that indoctrinates people with the philosophy of struggle, survival, and solopism. Living in such an authoritarian environment, most people simply care for their own interests, pursue their desires, and are very restless. Self-interest is of such importance that they would choose to sacrifice others' lives in order to save themselves in times of danger. They are insensitive and their desires rampant. This culture of extreme selfishness has rarely existed in human society. On the other hand, most people with religious belief can see their perils calmly. They believe in a true God or Buddha. They know how to restrain themselves. This is the welfare of humankind has always had in their minds, not in their own self-interest. Most of them love their God dearly. They love other beings, all sentient beings. It is that innate character of human beings. When this kind of religious culture matures, it nurtures into a soul of less desire, with more love, which is self-restraining while benefiting others. As their souls have an ultimate resting place, they will not panic in times of danger. They will not try to save themselves by any or all means. If those grade school students in Sichuan were nurtured by religious belief, not poisoned by the party culture, they could become very calm in the face of darkness. They would have waited for God's intervention because they would understand that God would have bestowed mercy on them. They would not be so frightened as to trample one another. Those familiar with life in China and with the rational ability of observation and thinking definitely notice the stampedes of the public transport system. This is one of the typical behaviors of collective behaviors and psychology in Chinese society today. No one is willing to fall behind. Everyone risks his life to rush ahead. No one would have an equal chance only if order is maintained. However, the chance is collectively destroyed by all. The result is the ugly stampede, wasting more time to get on a train or a bus. People are filled with hatred because of fighting and competing with one another. Everyone becomes the victim of his own doing. The psychology of fears and resulting behaviors are more apparent among the Chinese government officials and even more destructive to human nature. Many officials would bribe their superiors for fear of losing their positions. They become corrupt, take bribes, gang together for self-interest, abuse the law, and practice favoritism. They will cast aside all moral standards and law just to safeguard their own powers and interests. The worst among the bureaucrats are those of the old school. They try every way to suppress human and civil rights for fear of prosecution should they lose power. The old school in Chinese society have been clamping down on democratic movements, arguing that the present national condition is not suited for democracy. That if it takes more time to get ready for a democratic system, the citizens' lack of moral fiber for democracy, all of these are just excuses. What they really want to suppress is democracy. They wantonly suppress freedom and democracy because they are in fear of their future. They are just as stupid as those grade school students trampling one another in the dark. They totally lack their own powers of judgment. They just blindly follow the behaviors of those nearby. Harm set, harm get.